Welcome back to Just 2 Minutes, Just 2 Mishnayos. Today's Mishnayos Lenishmas, Fredeli Basrachan, L'schus Rabbi Yitzchak ben Gila, and the Froster Basriva. So Masechas Bava Basra, Perek Zayin, Mishnah Alpha, Mishnah Beis, Am Lechab Eri Bais Kar Afan Yimaycha Lecha, Hoysham Nekarim Mukim Asar Tvachim, Ba'Islam Gavayim Asar Tvachim, Enanim Dadim Ima. So if someone says to his friend, I'm selling you a base score, it's not the measurement of earth. So if there's of land, so if there were if there was like a little pit or a stone which was 10 handbreadths deep or tall, so then it's not considered part of the measurement. He has to add on extra earth to deal with that. If he said, I'm selling to you a certain amount of earth like a base car, so then if there were pits deeper than 10 handbreadths or stones, boulders bigger than 10 handbreadths, so then those are included in the sale. Mishnah base car afan mida bechevel piches koshu yanake. If someone says, I'm selling you a base car of earth and we're going to measure it with a rope, so then even if he takes off or adds on a tiny little bit, so then the sale is null and void. Haiser koshu yachzer. So if he takes off, if he gives less than he's supposed to, so then he has to give back money. If he adds on, so then the buyer has to give back money. Has to give back the land. If he adds on or takes off a quarter of a kav for each sa'ah, so then he doesn't have to give back. If he doesn't have to give it to him if he didn't give it, and he doesn't have to take it back. The buyer doesn't have to give it back if he added on that amount. But if he adds on more than a quarter of a kav for a sa'ah, so then they have to work it out, and he has to give back the excess or take back the excess. But what does he give back? Meaning, this is a case here where he gave an excess amount to the buyer. So what does the buyer give back to the seller? He gives money. But if he wants to, if the seller doesn't care, so then he can give the seller land. Why? Because this is now a tiny piece of land, and the seller doesn't want it because he doesn't really have anything to do with this tiny piece of land. So he wants money instead. So if he wants the land, he can take the land, but usually he would just take the money. But why do we do that? Why can he only give back money? Because there's a rule that when someone sells something, so he has the upper hand. Because he has the upper hand, so here he gets to take money instead of land. So why? Because otherwise, it doesn't have the name of a garden, because we said previously in the previous Mishnayos that for a house to be considered a house, you have to have 9 kav of space, and for a garden you have to have half a kav of space, and according to Rabbi Kiva you have to have a quarter of a kav of space, and if you don't have that amount, then it's not considered a garden. And over here we're talking about where it's a smaller amount than that, so he doesn't want this land back. So that's why he just takes money. And while we're anyway saying this, the Mishnah adds on another rule. He doesn't only give back this tiny amount, also any other things which he added on to the sale, which he was allowed to add on to the sale, now the buyer has to give back to him. Good Shabbos, and those are today's Mishnayos.